Hello, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode of DHN CXO podcast. And today we have the honor of hosting CEO of BPL MedTech, K. Guruswamy. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us on DHN CXO podcast today.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Aarti, and thanks to the DHN team for giving this opportunity. And look forward to this conversation.
Let's start with the first question for today's conversation. BPL Technologies has a rare legacy in Indian medtech, going back to building India's first in house ECG. As you look at today's healthcare landscape, what feels most different about this moment for medtech compared to the earlier phases of growth?
Very interesting. Yeah, that kind of takes me back the memory lane, right? When we started, as you rightly said, started as a simple ECG um, device company in the medical health space. I think that if I look back and connect it with the current context, the significant transformation in the overall the healthcare scenario, which is fundamentally we have moved from a situation where availability was a challenge in the past, right? Availability of
Correct.
device, availability of clinicians, availability of skill, to the situation of now today. We talk about adequacy of devices, right? Do we have enough devices? Do we have enough technology? Do we have the right technology? I think that is a significant transformation, that we have gone through from availability to adequacy, and also, the other big shift that has happened from an Indian healthcare point of view is gone are the days when we used to ask these questions: can we make high technology, high tech devices in India? That is now irrelevant. Now we are talking about how do we make devices more productive? How do we use the leverage those technologies that India has built over a period of time, whether it is in digital, in IT, in AI, in robotics? How do we integrate this into the medical device to make them more clinically relevant? So there's a significant shift in the ground that has happened, from availability to adequacy, and can we do what more we can do. That's a significant shift that has gone through in the customer's mindset also. A major transformation has happened. Digital used to be a suspect in the past, and I think that is now the adoption has become significantly high in the post-COVID scenario. And in the past, we used to think about how do I get customers to make use of to use this technology. Today, that is completely irrelevant. How do we the question is, how do I make my customers more productive? How do I make my customers more effective? I think these are all the complete change shift in the overall context that has happened, which is driving us also to think very differently as medical device technology companies. And many of us are up to the challenge. I think that's a big shift.
Over the last decade, the medical devices positioning has changed to becoming a healthcare technology partners. Hospitals or your customers, they do not just want a medical device, but they want to look at you as a healthcare technology partners. And this shift has happened over the last, decade. Now, what triggered this shift, and what did BPL have to unlearn internally to make that transition real?
Yeah, see, for us in BPL Medical, in general, for the medical device industry, and for us particularly in BPL Medical, I think what drives is the value that we add to the customer, right? What kind of value that we add to the customer is the most important thing that we always constantly keep thinking about. The big shift that has happened is in this definition of value. What customers think as value today is very different from what the customers were expecting in the past, as value. And for example, if I have to talk about a few things, technology adoption, which was a big suspect in the past, has become a new normal now. They're all
Right.
completely a new normal. Teleconsultations have become new normal. The
Yes.
patient not wanting to go into the hospital for everything has become a normal. Diagnostic test happening at home has become a normal. A patient who has undergone a surgery recovering in a remote location has become a normal. So a lot of these things have become new normal. The technology adoption has kind of significantly shifted. Our customers are constantly changing. I think that is what drives us. That is the biggest pivot, if you ask me. That is the biggest shift, that is driving us to think differently, that is driving us to that constantly keeps reminding us that we can't live in the past. We have to constantly keep changing. And that is a great shift that has happened post COVID. It has multiplied significantly and keeps us on toes all the time.
Well, thank you so much for that input. Now, there is a strong push towards increasing in house product development and IP creation from BPL side. And from an engineering and leadership standpoint, what are the hardest trade offs when you move from sourcing and assembling to genuinely innovating and manufacturing at scale, especially in a country like India?
Yeah, good question. I think I will think the first. I wouldn't think of trade-off. And I'd first think in terms of challenge. And if I look at challenges, the biggest challenge that we have today in India is our ability to source and retain good talents. I think that's becoming a big challenge with so much of. It's actually a kind of good and bad. We have so
Hmm.
much happening in India today. So much of the big tech players are coming into India, so we are always constantly, we have to be on our toes to get good talent, and the retention of those talents are also becoming challenge. That's the biggest challenge that we go through. And second thing is as far as the medical device is concerned, very particularly the ecosystem in India is not still, that great as it is in some of the Western world. When I say ecosystem, it is with respect to the kind of regulatory approvals that we go through, the kind of hardship that we need to go through in setting up a greenfield project, or multiple approvals that we have to go through, and availability of technology. Even today, we have to depend on China or Taiwan for a lot of electronic components, while we may be very good in mechanical thanks to the automobile industry. So that's another huge challenge that we go through. And the third big challenge that I see is our customers are very frugal. Indian customers are very frugal in
Hmm.
their mindset. In spite of everything that we do, I may say, I'm bringing in the best of the technology, but then customers' expectation, that the value that they attach is always very challenging in India. So we are always constantly under pressure to do things differently, to innovate, to develop technologies, but at the same time, we have to be extremely competitive when it comes to India. I think this is the biggest challenge, doing it with an Indian mindset. I cannot compromise on the quality. When it comes to medical device, I cannot compromise even the percentage on the quality and the safety. But I have to do all of this with a clear Indian mindset, with a very frugal mindset, to be able to pass this on to the Indian customer. That's the biggest challenge.
Correct.
So what happens if I have now come to the question that you asked? What is the trade-off? I think most of the time, what happens to the medical device startups and the other companies that are trying to get into this space, the biggest trade-off is, we settle down for the easy path. That,
Hmm.
it's maybe sometimes very easy for me to buy and sell rather than
Correct.
going through this long path. That's very unfortunate. That is the only thing I can think of a trade-off. But I think most of us are sustaining, surviving that, and we are still going through. We are still trying to see, how we can create a mark in this.
Just I wanted to add a corollary to that question because you also mentioned about the price sensitivity of the Indian consumers, and it sort of is across the board. You go to any industry, you will have people talking about how Indian customers are more price sensitive, but you also find some examples where Indian customers are ready to pay more in case the services or the products offered are really good. In that terminology, what would you say? How would you sort of look at the Indian consumer mindset? I know you already sort of touched base on this, but if you could just elaborate from your point of view, how do you see it?
So Indian customers are very smart. We keep saying this with our background in various other medical device global organizations that we have worked. Some of the big ones, I'm sure you know the names. One rule of thumb all those companies operate with is, if you can develop, manufacture, and sell a product in India, you can sell anywhere in the world. The product can
Right.
can be sold anywhere in the world, because our customers expect the best technology, best quality at the lowest possible price. Rightly so. That is what we are used to. So I mean that continues even today. That continues. But when it comes to medical device, one slight difference that we keep seeing, which is also a challenge for some of our Indian device manufacturers like us, is unfortunately over the last several decades, 80% of the medical device in India has been through the import route. So
Hmm.
most customers are used to imported equipments, the ones that come from the US, from Japan, from Europe, and all that. So there is still a mentality that, at times, even if the pricing is slightly higher, an equipment, a device that comes from outside of India probably is more safer than the Indian device. We still see that with a section of the Indian customers as far as the medical device is concerned. But I think it is fast changing. It is fast changing with a lot of things happening in India. A lot of the vocal communications that is happening today, publicly through the government and through various private organizations. That shift is happening. but still Indian customers are very demanding. In many occasions we still find that we have put in so much of effort, investment, and develop a product and take it to the market. It is disheartening to see that, I would probably prefer a ventilator that comes from Germany rather than a ventilator that is developed in India. It's still seen. I guess it's a question of time. We also have to prove ourselves, and I think the mindset will change. We are all looking forward to that
Right,
that
right.
that day when Indian products are going to be given first preference, like it happens today in China. Exactly, that's how it is in China. Chinese products are given the first preference in China,
Hmm.
and sure we are probably going towards that.
No, I think as you rightly mentioned, that mind shift change needs to be implemented in India and the adoption will happen gradually.
Yeah.
Let's come back to BPL MedTech. Your major focus is connected ICUs going forward. Now, when you talk about connected ICUs or integrated care environments, it's not just about individual machines talking to each other. The healthcare operates in a very complex environment. So, how do you think about a system level intelligence, and what are the clinical problems that you are prioritizing solving first through this connectivity?
Again, very, very relevant question. I think with so much happening around the connectivity and digital, the first principles are very important. The way we look at this in BPL is very simple. We're not complicating things. The biggest priority in India, when you look at the healthcare delivery system today, is 70% of our population are living in the tier 3, tier 4, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, and the other side is 80% of the good healthcare delivery is all available in the urban cities. Right now, I think that's a core of the problem in India.
Right.
So the first thing that we are looking at through connectivity, through digital solution, is to see how we can improve this accessibility.
Hmm.
Right? I mean, that's the first point before even getting into the clinical outcomes, etc. How can we enhance the accessibility of these devices? We have ECG machines, so we have ventilators, we have anesthesia machines, and these are used in a hospital setup, say in tier 1 in metro cities. How can we ensure that the patient who's living in a tier 3, tier 4 city can get the services of these high technology ECG equipment or anesthesia or X-ray machine? Is the first, which is where we are trying to use our digital health connectivity solutions through setting up hub and spoke models. We work with our customers to help them to set up hub and spoke models where you have a specialty center in a metro in a tier 1 city, whereas they can serve multiple tier 3, tier 4 cities by using the technology that we provide. Patients can be catered, monitored, and treated remotely, and through AI solutions, which fundamentally enables an X-ray machine that is installed in a remote location. Even if the clinician is not available all the time, it helps the clinician to take a decision very quickly and understand and report an X-ray. Normally, if it takes 10 minutes to report an X-ray, this would probably bring it down to 2 minutes to report an X-ray, right? So that the clinician time can be saved and productivity can increase. So the first problem that we are trying to address is accessibility. Now, second, when it comes to the clinical outcome through the connectivity and digital solutions, what we are focusing is to see, how can we provide maximum data to a clinician so that he or she can take a much better informed decision. Today, the diseases, whether it is a cardiovascular disease or cancer, what happens is there are so much of information available to the clinician through a laboratory test, an X-ray, a CT scanner, a PET CT, MRI, a cath lab. So much of clinical information is available from technology. Now, all of them are discreetly available, like, distributed. What we are trying to do through the digital health connectivity is how can we integrate all these relevant information and make the data available to the clinician through the connectivity so that he or she can take a much better, faster decision and hence intervention in the clinical outcome. So these are the two things that we are focusing on. Very simple. And I think this will be our focus continuously. Everything that we will do will go through these two filters. Accessibility, can we provide more data for better decision, better and faster decision?
But while we are talking about digitalizing the healthcare, we have to agree that healthcare still runs on hardware at its core. Now, how do you decide which devices truly need digital intelligence and remote capabilities, and where simplicity is actually more valuable than adding another digital layer?
Yeah, again, a very interesting question. Yes, so again at BPL, what we do is not adding a digital layer as you call for the sake of adding a layer. Now, I don't think we are adding any layer at all in the first place.
Correct.
The first thing that we are not doing is we are not complicating any of our devices. We
Mm.
have ECG machines, we have monitors, we have anesthesia, X-ray machines. They are simple. They are simple X-ray machines, X-ray anesthesia machines, and patient monitors. We're not trying to complicate them at all. We are not adding any complex technology to make it make it look something too complex for a clinician to use. All that we are trying to do. So our digital health network, for example, is basically helping the clinicians to use these devices in a much more effective manner, like an ECG machine, which is used inside a hospital to take ECG, right? Or is in a diagnostic center to take ECG. But what we are trying to do, if in a remote camp, a paramedical person carries this ECG machine and they conduct a camp with some thousand people, how can I enable them to take an ECG in that location and still get an opinion from the cardiologist remotely? That is what we are enabling. We are, this is nothing to do with the ECG machine is not made complex, but then we are adding a digital solution on the top of the equipment, which will make these machines much more usable, which will enhance the use cases of these devices, and hence, wider accessibility, more patients can be served through this, and better decisions can happen. So our approach to digital health or connectivity is very simple: not to inbuild all the intelligence into the machine, and hence make the equipment very expensive in the first place, and very difficult to use. Keep the equipments as they are, and use the digital technology and the connectivity to provide all the intelligence outside the device, right? And make the devices asset light as much as possible, make them affordable, make them easily usable. And the digital solution works as a layer to enhance the productivity, enhance the usability, enhance the use case scenarios of these diseases, of these devices. That is our approach towards the digital health.
That's actually a very valid point, because I think when you complicate your devices, the usability of the devices or the user adoption of the devices also sort of drops. The customers does not want to. Then let's move on and talk about the elephant in the room that has been, I think, in healthcare has been discussed for the past 2 to 3 years, the artificial intelligence. And we have seen across healthcare, AI is a fancy word, and a lot of people, startups are working in healthcare AI space. The solutions get implemented in hospitals, in healthcare settings, and then because of maybe either they're overhyped or because of they are underused, sort of their adoption becomes a problem. So I think the similar is the situation when it comes to AI in medtech. Now, as you embed AI into areas like imaging and diagnostic, what principles guide you to ensure that these tools genuinely improve clinician workflows without eroding their trust or accountability?
Yes, you're right. This is a big elephant in the room today, and a lot of terminologies are also being used: responsible AI, appropriate AI, and
Ethical AI.
use of AI. So much ethical AI. A lot of things are being used. See, I think we need to understand the role that AI can play over a period of time. In future, maybe it will play a much larger role. But at this point in time, we have to be very clear when it comes to healthcare delivery that AI cannot replace clinicians. Right? Clinicians take the clinical decisions not just based on one report that is generated from an equipment. Clinicians take a clinical decision looking at the patient, interacting with the patient, connecting multiple dots, just by palpating the patient, for example, or looking at having a feel of the pulse, looking into the eyes. A lot of things. There are so much of soft factors that go in when a clinician takes a decision. So a clinician or a radiologist can never be replaced by an AI.
Hmm.
So, and how do we do this? The simplest thing that we as a technology provider can do is to ensure that we involve the clinician in every part of this. When we develop an AI algorithm, the clinicians become the central part of this entire solution. We developed everything around the clinician. If he says, for me to be able to report an x-ray, here are the 10 things that I do. If I am able to do it in, say, 3 steps, I will be able to focus more on more clinical outcomes. I'll be able to do better service to my patient. That is where our starting point is. We are not trying to tell them that you decide the disease or a clinical outcome based on what I give you. Instead, if you are taking 10 steps today to arrive at the decision, can I help you to do it in 3 steps? That is where we start. I mean, this is where the requirements in any
Hmm.
solution or product that we develop. The most important part of the product development is the requirement gathering. We need to understand the requirement of the user in what scenario they will use. So we spend a lot of time in doing that, and we ensure the clinician becomes the central part of it. So the development is completely taken care, uh, takes care of the core requirement what we are trying to address. We are not trying to tell the clinician what the disease is. We are trying to help him to get to that step, get to that point instead of 10 steps in just 3 steps. Number one. And number two is these are validated. Most of all these algorithms are validated through millions of iterations with the clinicians. At any point in time, if a clinician feels he or she will not use it, that's it. It doesn't see the light of the day. We just dumped it. We don't even take it to the next level. And the third important thing is we don't intend to replace the clinician. We don't intend to replace the radiologist, and we are very open about it. We keep communicating it in every step. We keep communicating that we are not intending to replace you. We are only trying to help you. And at best, the AI algorithm can only help you to get to your decision points faster. So please use
Right.
it, and we don't enforce them. And of course, we ensure that there's a sign off from the clinician. They review it, and if they want to change, they can change. Overwriting is possible. The core is to make it as transparent as possible. So we are trying to keep it very simple, make it as transparent, involve them at every stage from the development to validating, to keep telling them, what it can do, what it cannot do. Make it very transparent and simple. And I think that is the approach that we are taking.
Right. I think, as somebody rightly said, that AI in healthcare will more likely to act as an assistant rather than the decision making body. And I think that is the right approach when we look at the medtech devices also.
Absolutely, it can never replace a clinician in the foreseeable future. At least that I can look at. It can only add value because what's happening today is every disease. To take oncology, cancer for example,
Hmm.
today uses multimodal data points. Right, cancer is just
Correct.
not one X-ray which is used. They use multiple data points today to diagnose and treat the patient, and such amount of data can be much more effectively analyzed, and some patterns can be easily found out using an algorithm like AI, which will make the clinician reach to a decision point faster. That's all the AI can do, and I think that's
Hmm.
probably it is doing it very effectively now.
And one of the major promises that artificial intelligence and connected healthcare has made is also, solving the accessibility problem, extending the quality care beyond the large urban metro hospitals that we see today. Uh, how do you, from your vantage point, design products that work just as effectively in resource constrained settings without compromising the clinical outcomes?
If you look at BPL as a company, our biggest strength is in the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 markets. Through the customer base that we have, through the partners network that we have, of people, we have around 900 people deployed across the country. And a majority of them are in the tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 locations. So we know these customers pretty well. We have been selling to them. We have been addressing their requirements, servicing them, and we have been with them for long. That we know these customers extremely well. We know the challenges that they go through, starting from a power supply issues that they might have in a village, or when we sell X-ray machines, the frequency is extremely important. The line frequency. So we know there are many places in the country where the line frequency keeps fluctuating. We know in many places there may not be skilled resources available to take a proper ECG. So we take this into consideration very, very clearly. And this is where, as I said in my earlier answer, when we develop a product, the requirement gathering becomes very, very important. I think a significant portion of our time in planning we spend in this requirement gathering. Since we do have a good understanding of this tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 markets, we are able to clearly put down and articulate what actually would be the real problems in those markets, and what should be the solution to those kind of problems, and we bake them into the product development. So when we develop a product, these requirements are taken into consideration. The solutions are baked into the development that we do, and all of them go through extensive validation. Our validation strategy is very clear that we will actually validate by the kind of users who will potentially be using these devices. So our product conceptualization, product development, product deployment, all of them have our customers at the central as the central point of this, and our customer base happens to be T2, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4. So I think we have a very good understanding of these markets and requirements.
Absolutely. Uh, BPL MedTech is undergoing a major reset, and you're not just building new products now, you're also sort of looking at reshaping the DNA of the organization. Now, what are the cultural and talent shifts that you are looking forward to as BPL moves forwards towards, IP led and digital first innovation?
Yeah, so if you look at BPL over the last several years, and we say BPL 1.0, 2.0, currently we are 3.0, the transition has been significantly from being a distribution only company, a company that used to buy and sell,
Yes.
then to a products company. Now we are moving on to a solutions and innovations company. So that's a transition that we are going through. And there's a huge challenge that we are going through in this transition. We need talents across all these. We need the top talents. We need talents in distribution. We need the top talents in products, product conceptualization, and also we need top talents in solution. So the challenge is retaining, so sourcing and retaining the top talents across all of this. We can't say I'm an innovation company and hence I do not want to have a distribution mindset. It doesn't work. And we have seen several companies who have got great ideas, great products, but then they're not able to scale up. And we have been successful in maintaining a good proportion of these talents. Now, the challenge is fundamentally when it comes to innovation, especially, what happens is it's a typical innovator's dilemma, as we call that. Innovators at times, some of them tend to unnecessarily complicate things. We have a feeling that if it is innovation means something out of the world. I don't think that is correct. Innovations can be very basic, incremental innovations also.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be an out of the world always to be qualified as an innovation. And we keep it very simple. In our case, I think we focus a lot on basic incremental innovations. Of course, we focus on some big, high impact ones also, but the incremental innovations make a lot of difference. And that is like, changing your aircraft engine as the aircraft is flying. You have to keep doing those innovations as you are on the move. So that thinking is very important, and this is what we try to do with our team members. We constantly keep telling them that you don't have to be an out of the world thing. You constantly keep innovating in what you do. It could be incremental innovations. We encourage such incremental small innovations. We communicate a lot around that. It's a question of coaching them, training them, and constantly talking to them. And resetting their kind of an expectation or thinking process to align with the organization direction. I think that is what we have been doing it. Have we perfected it? May not be, not yet, but I think we are doing a reasonably good job as of now.
Mr. Guruswamy, medtech is a sunrise sector, and I think the government of India is also pushing for build in India and made for the global audiences kind of a solution in Indian medtech also. We have stronger manufacturing, we have engineering depth. Now we are also moving towards digital capability. But how realistic is it for Indian medtech companies like BPL to serve global markets competitively? And what do you think are the gaps that still need to be closed before that ambition sort of becomes inevitable?
First thing is it possible? Absolutely possible. I think there are a couple of companies have already done that. It's absolutely possible for BPL, and I think are taking every step towards that direction. And it is fundamentally, as I told you in one of the questions earlier, that if we can build good, high quality, reliable, safe products for Indian market, actually those products can sell anywhere in the world, right? And it's a question of the fundamentals are same, the first principles are same. It is not that
Right.
we build a separate line of products for the US or a European market and then there is something different for India. That is not the way it is. And today of course, there's a whole I wouldn't say ecosystem. There is this momentum that is set in India that we want to be looked at as China plus one
Right.
destination, because China is doing extremely well today, and they are $100 billion medical device market. We are a $12 billion, same population, so we have that kind of headroom available for us. We also can become $100 billion over a period of time. And government of India has set a goal that 50 billion is the immediate short to medium term goal. It's quite possible. So China plus one is, I think, is a great ambition to have, where probably government and the private have to work together is creating a right ecosystem. And I
Mm.
spoke about an ecosystem in terms of the skill availability, and more importantly, when it comes to the regulatory areas, we're still a little complex when it comes to that. If you want to sell, say for example, in Europe, if you go, there's only
Mm.
one regulatory approval that you need to get in the entire Europe. You can sell the products everywhere. In US, it's just one FDA and you can sell, whereas in India we
Right.
still have 5 or 6 different approvals, various organizations. I don't want to be naming them, but that could be a big area to work with. If that can become a single vendor, one approval, then we are good. We are good to not only to sell India but also to sell outside of India. That actually reduces the cycle time to market so drastically. It brings down the cost as well as the time to market significantly. I think that's one area where there is definitely a big gap. The second area where the Western countries have done extremely well and they've seen the result is the industry academia collaboration, right? When if you look at in US in medical device especially, most of the innovations, if you trace back the root, it would have come from Harvard, it would have come from Massachusetts, one of those big institutions, right? And then it becomes commercialized, then becomes a huge technology, it becomes a commercial success. Whereas in India, we still lack that. There are a lot of patchy work happening, a lot of talks are
Correct.
happening with IIT, IITV, ISC, and all that. But I think there's no concerted effort to create this industry academia collaboration, which can actually do wonders because the Indian talents are hugely respected outside of India. There's the same talent that goes and does wonders outside of India. There's no reason why we can't do in India. It's just that the ecosystem to promote industry academia collaboration in a much more structured manner would do wonders for our country. I think these are a couple of areas. If we keep working, we should be in a different plane altogether.
No, I think these are very valid suggestions and also very timely since we are also looking at the budget of 2026, 2027. So these are very valid suggestions. And I think the government of India will do their best to, include all these suggestions from the medtech sector. Now, moving on to the last question. As you look towards 2026, 2027, what does success look like for BPL MedTech? I know you have spoken about the new product launches, the digital innovation, the digital shift, but not just in terms of revenue or product launches, but in how clinicians, hospitals, and patients experience the impact of your technology. In that term, how do you look at 2026?
Yeah, so obviously revenue, end of the day, revenue and market share and the products matter a lot. But then if I go beyond all of that, what do I want to see for ourselves? If I see, for example, 95% of the time, the clinicians use our devices that they have to deliver a healthcare service, whether it is saving a life or diagnosing something. If I'm able to ensure that, and if they use 95% of the time, if they use our device to produce meaningful clinical outcomes, I think that is the best that can happen to a medical device company. Because the kind of devices that we have, many of them are life saving, many of them are used for diagnosing critical diseases, etc. So if they are using my device, our devices, for 95% of the time to deliver a meaningful outcome, I think we have that's a big achievement that we have done. Number two, obviously, I want to have zero any reportable incidents. Zero reportable incidents. Everything goes well, safe. We always deliver safe devices. Could be the second one. Third important thing, and which is an outcome of all this that I just told, is I don't want any reason for our customers not to recommend our devices. If more than 90% of our customers don't have any reasons not to recommend BPL, I think we have probably achieved something significant. So that is probably how I will measure outside of the typical ones like the revenue and profitability, etc.
Great conversation at the very start of 2026. And we also got to know about BPL's 2026 roadmaps and what are the things that you are focusing on going forward. Thank you so much for this conversation. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Swati. Thanks for giving this opportunity again one more time. And I hope this year becomes a great year for the medtech devices, in particular, and generally for the industry at large.
Thank you. Thank you so much.